listening to Coffee and Conversation with Recovery Advocate Network, the nonprofit organization that strives to address the staggering disparity in resource availability for individuals suffering from mental health disorders, processing disorders, addictions, trauma healing, and sexual identity challenges. Together, we strive to end the stigma associated with these challenges so that true healing can begin. Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation with Recovery Advocate Network. I'm your host, Ann, and welcome you to episode number 67. In this episode, we are privileged to have a special guest, Cara Donley, who is going to share her inspiring story about her journey as a transgender individual. She will encourage us to know that it is never too late to start living our authentic lives and being our best selves. Cara took the brave step of coming out at the age of 63 and has shared her story with Huff Post and live on the Kelly Clarkson Show, where she works as a producer. I will include the relevant links in the show notes for those interested in learning more about her story. In the Huff Post, Cara says, "These experiences make it clear that transitioning has never been about switching genders. Instead, it's really about finally experiencing self-worth, taking the lead in my life instead of watching it from the mezzanine, and not only trusting others with my story, but also trusting myself, none of which I ever expected to do at the age of 63. More about Cara. She has worked for outlets including People Magazine, TV Guide, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Boston Globe, Emmy Magazine, and Vanity Fair. She's the author of The Candidates Running for President When Nobody Knows Your Name. In addition to her print work, she's worked as a producer on shows including VH1's Behind the Music, The Queen Latifah Show, and The Martin Short Show. She is currently a senior producer with The Kelly Clarkson Show. Okay, so enough of this. Let's do it. But first, as you know, our 3 C's of engagement. The first C, click that like, love, subscribe, follow, and share button. You want to make sure that you don't miss future episodes and that you share these messages with others who might really need it and have some hope and inspiration for them. Okay, the second C, commit to staying for the full episode. Oh, I absolutely love the motivational quote that Cara read at the very end. A little teaser. It's about like, hey, do things because you want to do them and have fun and learn how to do things. Oh, it's so exciting. Okay. And then what's our third C? Well, of course, it is your coffee. So go fill up your coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get started. I'm super stoked on this Sunday afternoon. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I have with me Cara Donley, who is in Manhattan today, where apparently it's warmer than it is in Atlanta. And she and I have been talking about her amazing story. As I shared with her, I read all about her online. I read your article in Huff Post, and reading it, I just had so many emotions. My heart exploded. I was sad. I was happy. I was overjoyed. I definitely had tears in spots. And we'll talk a little bit about my personal, what do I want to say, story along with this, that I have a cousin who is transgender and the challenges that she's endured, and also, your story. But now is my classic time for me to shut up. And Cara, tell us why you're here today. And I'm glad that your cat decided to join us as well.
Yeah, I'm going to move her. Say goodbye, baby. Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. I apologize for causing you physical stress, apparently, like exploding and crying. And I'm sorry that I did that to you. Thank you for having me. My goal since coming out to the world, and not just to people I was paying $250 an hour to. That was the extent of my coming out for a couple decades there. Um, and it's actually not quite a year since I went with Told Everybody. When I walked into our work wrap party, I worked for in case anyone needs to know, I work for Kelly Clarkson on her talk show. I'm one of the celebrity producers. And it will be a year this week since I told Kelly. And it will be a year next month since our wrap party, where I didn't have a chance to tell everyone and walked in with my kind of way too short for my age Betsy Johnson dress. And maybe shocked a few people.
Well, congratulations on a year coming out, living as your full self. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's still very surreal that this is all happening, and it's happening in a new city, and I'm 64, and it's what's hard for me to still process, no matter how many times I tell people this story, and I kind of want to tell everybody this story because there's a lesson that I've learned about it never being too late for things. But it's still hard for me to process that this is a thing that's been inside since I was maybe 7 or 8. I don't remember exactly, but which my first memory of any of this was, if you remember, the TV show Bewitched, because I'm way old enough to remember it and have watched it the first time around, and being very, very confused about two Darrens. Like, that totally threw me, which, if anybody hasn't seen the show, that joke will not be funny. They changed Darren's, her husband, in the middle of the run of the show. It was one actor, and then suddenly it was another actor, and they never explained why. So that was confusing later. But the main character had a daughter. They were the witches, the mom and her little child, and her child was named Tabitha. And I used to have a dream. I must have had it enough that I remember it, 60 years later, that she would come over to the house, would say she wanted to play with me. I would say, great. She would say, here, drink this first, or this thing that looked like a little cup of tapioca pudding. I would. And I would be a girl and we'd go play. And it was a blissful dream. And I didn't think anything of it, because when you're that age, that age, you don't really process gender, I think, at that age. You don't do it. People around you start enforcing the gender thing. So it didn't really dawn on me that was weird. And then a couple years later, I would have dreams like the one where I would be walking along on a beautiful day, and I would suddenly grow boobs, and they gave me the power to fly. And I don't think I needed to pay a lot of therapists to analyze that particular dream. I think we all that one. But I was getting older, and it was starting to become apparent the boys and girls are different, um, physically, but not just physically, like societally. That's when it starts hitting you. I remember being, I think it was the 5th grade, and maybe schools still do this, where one day in our 5th grade, they took all the 5th grade boys and took us down to the gym, and they took all the 5th grade girls and took them into like a conference room or whatever. And they told we boys, all right, things are going to start changing and your bodies are going to change. And now you need to change your socks every day and take a shower every day. All right, let's play dodgeball. That was it.
Oh my gosh.
I am not making that part up. That was it. That's all they told the boys. And I mean, we didn't know at the time. We certainly found out what they were telling the girls. And whereas the girls got this insight into like themselves and their bodies and what was coming. And the boys just gotta, yeah, all right, don't smell. That's our advice.
Wow.
And that, I mean, it felt weird and wrong to me then, and it still does. But I didn't really identify very well with all the dudes, and I tried. But that was the age, and then moving on to like 13, 14, 15, where I knew that I felt like differently. Um, and there are so many misconceptions. I'm hopeful, and please keep reminding me to explain about trans people, that the media, which is very ill-informed on what we are, continues to repeat. And people seem to think that trans women are, we wanted to wear our mommy's dresses and we wanted to play with Barbies and do tea parties, and trans men grew up as girls learning how to fix a carburetor with their dad or whatever. That is complete. I don't want to swear, so I will just say it's complete doo doo, because that's not how it works. For some people, sure. For others, not at all. Like I didn't really want to wear my mom's clothes first. I don't know that her taste matched mine. But that wasn't what I was feeling. What I think I was feeling was just like discomfort without knowing what that was about. And I would go to the library because I was that exciting as a kid and had no friends. Strange, hard to believe hearing me talk, but and I would look up, try to figure out what was going on with me, and that's where I discovered, in those days, transsexualism. And then I would tear the stories out of the magazines, because it was still an actual magazine, and do that cough thing, where you pretend so you didn't make the noise. I would like cough, and
So you can tear it and they don't hear
yeah,
you.
nobody would hear. And then I would take them home, and I had in my closet, to really try to dude it up. I subscribed to the Sporting News, which I did like, actually. I still like baseball. So, but I would take the articles, I would hide them in there. I think there's a fair degree of irony in that I was hiding my trans treasures in a box filled with sports magazines. Um, and then at another point, actually, after discovering that, I wrote a letter to Johns Hopkins University, because they were the only ones doing research at the time on transgender, transsexuals. And they had a clinic that was helping people transition. And so I wrote them a letter saying, hi, I'm like a 15-year-old here in Seattle, and I think I'm one of these people. What do I do? And they sent me all these pamphlets back. There was like 6, 7 of them, all in different colors, the red one, the blue one, the green one. And I would read those like bedtime stories, and then hide them in the sports box. At another point, I don't know if you or anyone who's listening will know who Christine Jorgensen is or was, but she was like the first transgender woman to really get noticed in like the early 50s. She was an ex-GI who went to Denmark, I think, and transitioned. And all of the tabloids for years after that would do the ex-GI turned bombshell story about her. She would do talk shows throughout the 60s. A weird time, because that wouldn't happen now. Like, we, in a way, people were more forward thinking in the 60s about trans people than they are now. But anyway, I found a way to get a letter to her, and she wrote me back instantly and sent me an autographed copy of her autobiography and told me, don't feel weird. You're not weird. You're going through what I went through. And that was an amazing thing, to have somebody who had been through it say, It's okay. Don't worry about it. Which is why I want to be the new Christine Jorgensen for anyone, to be America's friendly neighborhood trans woman, which I may have already said. That's my goal in life now. Um, but anyway, that should give you an idea of all the massive confusion. I finally went to a therapist when I was like 17, and snuck out of the house because I grew up in a family where you did not. It was the 70s, and I was in one of those don't say anything too loud or forcefully. You don't want to wake God up because he's not going to like hearing what you got to say. And so I didn't tell anyone. And I told the therapist at 17 who said, yeah, you probably are, but nothing you can do. You got to wait till you're 21. And so then there was the pretending even more about, playing sports and not that I didn't like them, but there was the stereotype of let's go play video games and get drunk with the dudes and talk about chicks, and always made me uncomfortable. Y'all should hear how guys talk. Remember a lot of guy conversations over the years. They're the ones who found out about this and don't really talk to me very much anymore. I think they know that they probably spoke a little out of turn back in the day. But at 21, went to a therapist. I'm sorry, this is taking forever.
No, this is perfect.
It feels like it took forever, honestly. At 21, went, saw a therapist. Within 2 sessions, maybe, he had said, yes, oh, you're exactly what I've been reading about. So we need you to start hormones, and sent me to start hormones. And I did, and did that for 3 months, maybe. And then as they started to do their thing, as they do, I panicked and I stopped. And I threw them all down the toilet, and I said, that's it, and I'm out, and I made this whole thing up, and I'm crazy and weird, and then just slipped into denial that it was like the Super Bowl of trauma for me, because it came around like at least once every year. This feeling that I can't do that, like I gotta do this, I can't be this. Which is another thing I would say to anyone, any relative you have, or anyone specifically regarding trans. It's like working for the weekend. Loverboy song, "Working for the Weekend." If you go to see Loverboy, they're going to play it. Don't worry.
Yeah,
It's
I
going to.
saw them last year.
Wow.
Foreigner actually
Yeah.
donated tickets to their concert to Rand's auction. And so I bid on it. And Loverboy was also there with Foreigner, and I saw them. And so I heard them. Yes.
And they're all about 90, about my age, probably.
Yeah, they're like getting at the end of their touring days, I think.
Yeah, although maybe not, because there's a lot
You never know.
out there. But the somewhat in jest thing, which maybe not, since you have gone to see them, but being trans, it's never gonna disappear. Much like Working for the Weekend will never disappear from the set list. It'll come back around. You can hide it and you can deny it. And you can do that successfully. I mean, I did it successfully for decades, but it doesn't leave you. It just then goes and, sits in a quiet place. And will jump out and, jump scare you every once in a while. And it did that to me, and I would go see a therapist. I had a collection, some people collect stamps. I collected therapists, and tried so many different things, and thought it was just I wasn't guy enough, and went to a sex therapist, which is a whole different story. I don't know that I should be telling. Uh, uh, it didn't end well, that one. It'll be in the show. When my show debuts come, it'll be in there, because it's
Oh, give a teaser for your one-person show.
Yeah. I mean, as a result of the things I haven't talked about yet, I was put in contact with, because I had done the Huff Post thing, like you mentioned. I produced a whole hour for Trans Awareness Week with Kelly, and I was one of the guests on the show, so that went everywhere. And as a result of all that, I ended up being put in contact with a producer director here in New York who specializes in off Broadway one person shows. Um, we met a couple times and he talked me into writing my story as a one person show. And that's why I'm enjoying this right now, because I'm supposed to be finishing it by end of day. I, I don't know if I have the mental capacity to finish, but we are
I'm
hoping.
glad I could help you procrastinate.
Oh,
Maybe.
I need every excuse, and the director will blame probably you later, but it's okay.
Okay.
You don't know him.
I'm a
Uh,
big girl. I can handle it.
yeah, and he doesn't want to upset the talent, so he can't complain.
I
Um,
know.
but anyway, we're hoping we've got our first sort of private read in a month. Hopefully that goes well, and people will offer money to put it up because it doesn't come cheap. And then hopefully that will happen. And at some point, late summer, hopefully we'll be able to do 3 or 4 shows and see what the response is. And I will inevitably break down in tears on stage that it sucks. So, but we'll see. Anyway, where I got with that, but
So
uh,
you collected therapists
uh,
and you made through this journey. Yep.
uh, yeah, it just every single one, um, they were diagnosing me quicker and quicker and quicker, and the last time or next to last therapist I saw, she had a giant clock over her head. So I was aware of the time the entire time. And we were 7 minutes in. And she had said, "Oh, honey, you're such a lady." And I said, "What? What do you mean?" And she said, and I'm doing it now. Look at your hands. Look at how you talk with your hands. Look at your mannerisms. Listen to what you're talking about. Listen to, do you have no self-awareness? And I said, I've got too much, but clearly I was wrong. So that was like 2013, 12, something like that. And she sent me to start hormones again, as many people had, and I would start and stop a lot, which I realized not healthy. But
But it
I,
is a common thing that I hear. And I hear it in a lot of different areas, right? So I know I do it with like depression meds. I'll start and stop it or other things. And so can you kind of share if you know, because actually I don't know why I do silly things like that. So maybe you don't, or maybe you do know. What were the thoughts that were going on in your head? As I know you talked a little bit about it in the Huff Post when you first started hormones for the very first time.
yeah,
But can you kind of talk about what that struggle is, that internal struggle is?
in the process of writing the show, as I go back really for the first time to look at all these phases, I'm starting to finally look at the whole picture, which I've never done, and start to understand it a little bit more. But like on the face of it, it always seemed like my backing down was like I would see things start to develop, let's say, with the hormones. And I would freak out because then you realize, oh, I'm going to have to tell people like this is not something I'm going to be able to hide for like I can hide my transness, but once you start the physicality of it, you can't hide it.
Once you
And
start showing breasts and things like that.
yeah, I didn't. Yes, that's kind of it. Yeah. But and the hair. I mean, I always wanted longer hair anyway, but it's just there are signs, and I would have. I mean, they would be there, and I would freak out that this isn't what I wanted. Like this was only an idea. It shouldn't be reality. It's just a thought, and I don't want to have the reality. I just want the thought. and you go back in and you sort of hide because the reality means the world's going to find out and the world's going to hate you and your kids will not talk to you. Like you spin out on everything, all the stuff that I think I was saying before that won't probably happen, but you don't know that. So you assume it. Um, I think in hindsight, the reason for so much of the yo-yoing was pretty much every trans person I've ever met is the worst transphobe there is. We hated ourselves because we were taught to hate that sort of thing. It was different. Um, it was all weird sex stuff and it was shameful. And that I think is what really drove all of it. Not that I was afraid, that I was just ashamed to be something that not many other people were. And anytime in that era that there was a conversation about trans people, it was very negative. It was not, let's celebrate these people. It's still not, unfortunately. And I think that's what drove all the ups and downs. And that's the weird thing about getting older. And I'm sure I wrote this in HuffPo probably, but when you get older, your skin gets saggier and wrinklier, but it also gets thicker. And realizing that, and there's another swear word I usually use, but I don't know if that's allowed or not. My
Zero fucks given. Well, go
that
ahead and say it.
uh, well, I refer to it as my fuck counter. We all have an internal fuck counter. And mine, when I hit around 60, just clicked to zero. And you don't get those back because you don't want, was why finally, actually, it's almost 3 years ago, when I realized I can't, because it was sort of coming out of the pandemic where we all did a lot of, we should have all done a lot of self analysis. I know the people who didn't, and they could have benefited with a little self analysis. But yeah, I mean, I just realized, like, what am I? Let's just do this thing. And it wasn't that easy. I still had to spend a couple months working up the nerve to go to a doctor. And then even when I went, I spent the entire first visit having him convince me this is all a mistake, and get me on however many gallons of testosterone you can put me on, because I sat there and I remember him sitting patiently, and going through all my years of medical records and pointing out that my entire life, I have had borderline testosterone levels for a male. Like it was, at best, it was the lowest you could have. And that means something, I guess. And he finally convinced me that, let's hold off on your plan. Why don't you just do a very low dose of estrogen, come back in 6 months, and see how you feel then. So don't rush to judgment on anything, which is the wisest thing I'd ever heard up to that point, because it was so all or nothing. It's like you're either going to be, the goofy kind of ugly guy, or you're going to have, 42 double D boobs and, Dolly Parton hair. Like you don't see the in between, which is reality. And him doing that worked like an antidepressant for me, like getting on that
That's
small.
amazing.
It's it sounds fictitious, and I'm still somewhat suspect, but that some bodies crave estrogen, like they're not operating at their best unless they have that, and I'm one of those people. So, um, so things led to other things, and eventually, um, going on a bigger dose and a bigger dose, and um, taking progesterone, and then it was a year ago when I just realized, what am I waiting for? My kids are grown. I've already kind of brief them on this struggle of mine, and they couldn't have cared less because their generation is hopefully going to take over this country and this world because they really don't care that they see it. And I can't remember if I said this before, but what the main thing that I learned from them, from all of this, is to never use the trope of changing genders. And I can't remember if I mentioned it or not, but it's so not that. It's confirming who you are. And gender is a part of who you are, but it's not the part of who you are. Um, and my kids' generation, they're in their 20s and they grew up getting that. And, having that, um, finally having a therapist who didn't just say, all right, yeah, this is what you are, go. Somebody who worked with me a little bit more. And it all just sort of fell into place. And I had an amazing boss with Kelly Clarkson, who was beyond supportive, and everyone at the show has been like incredible. They have made me cry several times, including on camera when I did the episode. And yeah, it's very weird that this is what my life is right now. Go away, kitty.
I
Um,
love when you talk in your article on Huff Post about how motivational to you Sharon Stone was when you
oh,
were talking. That was just so empowering. I just think the world, whoever, if you're listening, and obviously you're not going to hear this if you're not listening, so you are listening. For all the listeners who are listening to this, you never know how the things that you say to somebody else can be the most motivational, and they can also tear people down. So be careful what you say, but say those powerful things. Speak the truth to other people.
yeah. I mean, I think what I have also found, and yes, Sharon Stone was somebody I had to interview for the show because that's my job is to be a celebrity whisperer. And we ended up having like an hour and a half conversation about self determination and that you can spend your life doing what other people expect or and feeling okay about it, or find what fills you up and you'll feel great about it. And we didn't talk about trans things at all with her. But yeah, that to have someone like her who has put that into action her entire life. I mean, there's nobody who's more
Absolutely.
self-actualized than the lovely goddess Sharon Stone. Um, but yeah, another one that I'd sort of forgotten about. If you want me to name drop again, I'm happy to
Go
do
for
it.
it.
That it's a thing I ended up writing 2 days ago in this show was that the day when it really turned for me, because I was still sort of half-assing it a little bit. Like I would go to work wearing women's dress shirts and skinny mom jeans, and I would be waiting and waiting for somebody, and my hair was getting longer, and I kept waiting for someone to take the burden off me and go, "Hey, why are you wearing those women's shirts? You're not one of them transgenders, are you?" Um, and I wanted that actually kind of badly because then it's off of me. Like I don't have to initiate it, and that was sort of that made it easier. But that wasn't happening, and it was like late November, I think, of 2022. I had Dolly Parton as a guest, and everything everyone has ever heard about Dolly Parton is so true times like 10 million. There's something about being in her orbit that changes things. And we were sitting in her dressing room before she went out, just talking, because that's usually what the job is. Like you kind of celebrity babysit for a little bit. Um, and we weren't talking about trans again, but it was also that same sort of, be who you are. And Dolly has spent her whole life and career saying that for everybody. I think we were talking about like the Dolly drag queens or something. There's like a whole group of drag queens who like only do Dolly and they travel. And we were talking about that and are talking about how great it was. And I
I
was,
think I saw something on, I don't know, social media or something recently where she was laughing about the fact that she lost to somebody else in a Dolly Parton drag queen thing, is they thought that the other person looked more like Dolly Parton than what she did, which
yeah,
I thought was hysterical.
and that tracks. But we didn't talk about this, but I will always remember sitting almost like on the edge of the couch where I wanted to go, well, funny, you should be talking about this because there's the thing I haven't really told anybody, but I feel like in this moment, like you're the one who gets to hear it first. I didn't do that. I felt it. But what I did do after the show was go upstairs. The studio was on first floor and our offices were on the fourth floor. And I went up and Kelly's hairstylist was up there. And he had a few times had said to me, because he's also just the sweetest human being, would say, you should let me like do your hair. Why do you like to have it so long? And I would say, well, there's a reason, but I'm just not ready to tell you. So I think he knew at that point. He told me later, he definitely knew. But I went up, said, can I talk to you? We went into the makeup room. He closed the door. We talked. And like because of Dolly, like I don't think I would have done it. Just she got me in this very confessional mood, and I told him, then told some other of the glam team, and then it just sort of snowballed. So I, hopefully on opening night, I'll be able to convince Sharon Stone and Dolly Parton to come. Um,
That would be so amazing.
yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's a lovely
It
idea.
could.
Yeah, we'll see. But we have to get it up first. Um, but anyway, that's all of what sort of brought me here today, doing this, living this surreal second chance at age 64 that nobody ever gets. And I want to constantly share, which we discussed a little bit too, of I hard to believe, I know after hearing me talk, not somebody bursting with self-confidence, and never, ever, ever was. Um, but I have learned through all this that I was able to do this without having any sort of self-confidence. So if I can do this, God knows anybody can do this. So that's the lesson I bring to the world is whatever it is, not even trans stuff. It's, you want to learn how to play the bass. I don't, it's just something. I don't know what it is, but it's so much easier to not do it, but it's also so less fun. Because like you already know what you're going to get by not doing it. Why not see what it's like to do it? Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you'll suck at the bass, like every friend of mine during COVID who thought they would how to play bass. And just learn how to play Smoke on the Water, like a couple of bars of Smoke on the Water, and that's all they ever learned because they didn't do a very good job. But they tried, and I guess that's the point. Sorry, I'm scaring my cat away from eating my lunch that I forgot about. It's always drama here,
Well, a couple of things that you said. One, I say this quote repeatedly on this podcast. So when I interview Dr. Constance, and he is the author of the book 52 Weeks Being Mindful, one of the quotes that he has in his book that is my absolute favorite is every life matters, including yours. Start acting like it. And
Yeah.
I think it's this moment of saying, and I saw my hairdresser on Friday. My hairdresser is a gay man. And he was talking, I was telling him that I was super excited about interviewing you today. And he was telling me about his coming out story was like super easy for him. Like his family was really receptive, his other people were really receptive. And I'm used to hearing the opposite side of that. I'm used to hearing the individuals who've been basically rejected by the people around them, their family, and have had that added trauma tied to it, and which I think is so much the ignorance of the people who are doing the rejecting. It's just like, seriously, you get to live the life you want to live. Who do you think you are to stop somebody else from living the life that they need to be able to live? So I hope that, if anything, that if someone's listening to this and you have someone in your life who's struggling, think about how much you can love and show them joy by allowing them to be their true selves, just like you want to be your true self.
Yeah, the thing that I have found as I move along in this process is I am most often the first trans person anyone's ever met. And so in their heads, trans people are what Fox News tells you we are, which is, we want to groom children. I took my son to get his hair cut when he was little, and I bought him a suit. They had to go to a wedding once, and I helped him buy a suit, but that's not a thing. It's the restroom hoo-ha is fascinating because like nobody likes a public restroom. What do you like? Why are you fixating on that? What do you think is going to happen? But everyone thinks this because that's what the media keeps saying, and they don't know us. They haven't met us. And that's why I think I'm also very eager to talk to anyone about this at any time. Even 3 a.m, wake me up, I'll talk. But don't hand out my number because that would probably be bad.
I won't.
But I like to think, and actually I know this happens a little bit, and it sounds horribly self-serving, but when I meet people, and like even after I did the episode with Kelly, for a few weeks after that, I had some of our camera guys, our crew guys, come up to me in like a private moment to say, thank you for doing that. You made me cry. I always heard about trans people, but I didn't know one. And you all seem pretty cool. And when a Teamster tells you you're pretty cool, I guess I passed the test.
You do.
But it's like this, I don't think is very threatening. I don't know. Like everybody watching it can decide if I'm that scary human that, Fox News hosts warn you about. And I can pretty much guarantee they've never met one of us, or they've met Caitlyn Jenner, who doesn't count at all. Not a favorite of mine.
Well, I think too, one of the things I want to say is you talked about your fear, for example, of your children and how they would react, and your coworkers, and everyone was just so loving and compassionate towards you. And I want to say to some, so when I think about, for example, the situation with my cousin, I I remember at one point I received this Facebook message from this individual, and I thought, I don't know this person's name. And they said, oh, I used to love these dresses that you wore in high school. And quite frankly, I thought this person was like one of those Nigerian people that is trying
Mhm.
to sell, like, hack you into something. Cause I'm like, I don't know who this person is. Right.
Yeah.
And so I just like ignored it, and then my aunt passed away of colorectal cancer, and I went to the funeral, and several family members said, "Oh, did you see what this person posted on Facebook?" And I heard the name and I said, "Oh, who is that?" And they said, "Oh, that is, your cousin, this other person." And I suddenly thought, "Oh my gosh. First off, I feel like a jerk because I
Yeah.
completely ignored when she reached out to me. And
Yeah.
secondly, that makes so much sense." And, she at this stage was in her maybe late 30s, early 40s, and found out that she was going to be coming to Atlanta to have some surgeries. but the tensions with her family were such that she was going to stay in a hotel for these surgeries. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you were absolutely not staying at a hotel. You were staying at my place. And when you talk about like the kids, I have a 21-year-old special needs daughter. And so
Yeah.
I said to her, I said, look, stay at my place. And Rihanna, my daughter, would love to nurse you while you're recovering from your surgery, right? And Rihanna was super excited. In fact, she figured out pronouns and names when I would slip up. Now, granted, I've known this person my entire life, so it's also hard to retrain, right? But she was just so on top of it. Now, unfortunately, my cousin changed her mind and has had this struggle and has really struggled with suicidal ideations and going back and forth and is kind of like hibernated again. And that breaks my heart, which is part of why reading your story also was so emotional for me, because I just want to say to individuals out there, if you're struggling with this, and first off, we have a couple of episodes. We talked with Rainbow. I believe it's around episode 7. I love Rainbow. And we talked with her then. We also did a blog post called Trapped that Shane wrote, talking about the struggle of being partially in and partially out.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, pick the people, the tribe that are really going to love you as a humans, because there are people like Cara and myself who will accept you and love you for who you are. And those are the people you want in your lives. And just figure out how to have that, I don't know, saggy, wrinkly, thick skin in the zero fucks on the fuck counter for the other individuals, because you deserve to live your life.
It's yeah, I mean, I'm very serious when I say that's all I really want to do now. I know it's not a safe time to be trans in this country, and I mean, I have many friends who I've made since transitioning who have all transitioned, and I know their struggles, and they lose jobs. The dating piece of this is horrifying. Not for me because I haven't had a date in about 12 years, but it's like these friends of mine are just gorgeous. They're like the dolls, and they struggle with trying to find work, or they struggle with guys who see us as a prop or something. They're not being honest with who they are, and the number of direct messages I've gotten since I started my Instagram page from MAGA dudes is frightening.
What
Uh,
is MAGA dudes? What is that?
the MAGA, the Trumpian crowd.
Oh, got
Uh,
it. Got it.
and it's mostly dudes with like beards that could at least use some, and talk grooming. I mean, come on, guys. And the ones who will take a shotgun to a drag brunch are the ones who privately send messages to me, and I've had more than one, say, God sent me to earth as an angel to be their bride, and that they're always single dads. They're not. They've created this like persona that they're single dads and their wife passed away, and little Evangeline and Josiah need a nice mother to take care of them and cook the meals, and I look like I'd just be perfect for that. And there was a time, like, I knew it was all like icky, but I would engage like a little bit, and it went downhill very quickly with physical descriptions and things.
Yeah.
But they're the ones who posted all these pictures of them, in their Confederate flag gear, or their Trump shirt, or them in their pickup, and like those things don't necessarily add up, but to me it just means we would all be so much better off if we just try to be honest with
Oh my gosh,
ourselves.
absolutely. That's what I was just thinking. Like, I actually almost feel a little bad for them, because they haven't found the strength to be their true self. It's just like, seriously, your life must suck that you're living this double standard.
Yeah, no, I feel that way every time I accidentally turn on Fox. I actually feel sorry for them because they don't like if that's your world is this little thing, this box that you allowed yourself to be put in when you were 5. That mommy and daddy, were Republicans, and you went to church every day, and that was your world, and you never questioned anything. I feel bad for you because your life is never going to be full. The thing whenever I talk to like journalism students and things, the thing I always like to say, my other words, my pearls of wisdom, the best word in the English language is why. That
I love that.
Because first you'll never have to stop asking it because there's always another why, and asking why helps with understanding something, like really getting below the surface. And what I have a T-shirt that I had made up after right before I came out to New York that says "Don't stare, just ask." And friends of mine, cis and trans people, said, "Do you really want to be doing that? Because what if they do ask?" And I'd say, bring it on. Like I want somebody to, because my response will always be, all right, well, I'll tell you, but like, am I male, female? I'll tell you, but why do you want to know? Why is it, your day can't continue unless you know what I got underneath my clothes? So tell me why that's important to you, and I'll answer every question you got. And the same with all the even friends who will say, "So what are you into now? Like, chicks or dudes?" And these are people I know. And I then will also say, "You didn't ask me that like 3 months ago. Why do you want to go now?" And I know why, because it's salacious. And we are still seen as um, not, well, fetishes to some degree, but as like an anomaly somehow. Um, and that's why I could do another hour on how I feel about the whole trans athlete thing, but I will, that's that's irritating to me. First, how big a problem is that really? Like, like a couple hundred people, like it's not a thing, but it's a thing that even people who call themselves allies, people I work with, people I know, good friends of mine, some who are even trans, will go, yeah, but sports, that's a bridge too far. Like, I'm with you, but I can't be with you on the trans athlete thing. And that is also a load of hooey. How's that? I'm trying to, want to make sure, and then I'm going to say jump a Jehoshaphat and go to the Charleston contest later because clearly I'm from the 30s, uh, or the cast of Green Acres. But like that it's not an issue, people, and but when ordinarily thoughtful people say that they're not entirely on board because of that, it's disturbing because they still seem to be following for propaganda, for rumor, and are not really trying to ask why. Like, why do you not want a trans person in sports? Oh, it's because they'll have an advantage. Really, what advantage? Why do you think they have an advantage? It's Trust me, I'm gone through it. I've got a lot of different hormones swimming in my system now, and I'm not competing with anyone, and nor will 99% of trans people. Um, so there, I vented. There are a few things that set
I
me
love
off.
that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I had something I was gonna say, and so I can relate to the people looking at you and just feeling like they have this right to ask really invasive questions. So I am the survivor of a kidnapping,
Oh, wow.
and I have a service dog with me. And the things that people come up and say to me, and and then and I changed the vest on my service dog. It used to say PTSD service dog, and then I had a whole bunch of people thanking me for my service. And I thought,
Well,
okay, world, people can have PTSD from a lot of things, not just the military. So I changed it, and her vest now says hostage survivor. And I'm still shocked at the people who are just random strangers at like the airport and stuff who feel like they need to ask me the most invasive questions. And now I just say, it's episode 1 of my podcast. So if you want to listen to the podcast, you can hear my story on episode 1. But I'm not going to go into telling
well,
you all these things because I want to do that with people that want to get. I'm really big about getting to know humans as humans. And
yeah,
I love the why thing. So I'm an engineer, and in engineering, we use the 5 whys. Like, okay, you say why this. Okay, now, and it helps you get down to the root of whatever the problem, challenge, opportunity,
yeah.
all of that is. And yet at the same point, I also, now that I'm 3 years out, when people ask me questions, I am so much more confident. And
Yeah.
in fact, my hairdresser on Friday said, "You just say hostage like it's nothing." And everyone in the hair salon like got quiet really quick, right? Because I'm now used to it and I've talked about it. But yet it's also as like humans, when you see someone who something is different about them, the idea of like, wait, do you really want to know them as a human being? Or are you just want, like you said, the salacious thing to feel whatever your fantasy is?
Yeah, I mean, we all like to go to the circus and, look at the dog-faced boy. Like, why not? Because that's, the Weekly World News existed for a reason. Um, it was a tabloid when I was growing up, like the one that had alien babies and stuff. And that's like I get why people are fascinated by things that are not part of their world. Um, but there's a way to express that is, hey, I'm genuinely curious, and not, hey, you freaky person who is kind of screwing with my idea of what gender is. What's your deal? Um, and the thing that bothers me most about that, which I've only realized in the last like 2 weeks or something, which I realize now is why I'm even on your show, that I went to post on Facebook maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, um, to tell the world because I was finally able to explain it to my mom, who's 90, so it was not easy. Um, and then I went, well, there's nobody else left that I have to personally tell, so I'm just going to tell the world, put it on Facebook. I learned first that people still use Facebook. That was interesting. I didn't realize that. And then this outpouring of, because with Facebook you've got like 2,000 followers, about 10,
Right.
uh, and but I got literally hundreds and hundreds of either like quick notes or like whatever of people showing support. But I got one uh, text from a friend of mine I hadn't seen in like years and years. We used to be very close. And she, a liberal, votes like, strong liberal Democrat down the line, said, first, I can't believe you didn't call to tell me this news. And the reason I didn't is I haven't really talked to her in years. And I can't really go out to every person I've ever met. If
Right.
Hallmark had a card that, then it would be great. The Rosa Red, Violet's Blue. Oh, hey, I'm trans. Like, that would be great. But it doesn't exist. But the thing that I found out of talking to her was her continually saying, well, I miss my guy friend, and it's hard for me to adjust. So you have to give me time. I'm having trouble understanding this. And it happens where people take ownership of your situation. and I've had that more often than I would like, where they're more concerned about how me being trans affects them, which is the same as all the, the people who hate us and pass laws against us. It's they they're viewing us through their own eyes rather than understanding we're not you. We're not related to you. So you do you, as annoying as that is, and we'll do us, and no problem. But they take it personally. And this particular friend who just kept saying, I miss my guy friend. And I mean, I stopped answering because it's that kind of mentality that somehow I owe an explanation to people for doing this. And people who say they want to understand it, I don't even understand it. You just got to accept it. That's it. Like, understanding requires way more brain power than most of us have. Acceptance takes nothing. Acceptance is easy.
Yeah.
Well, why not just do that? And
Absolutely. I think I hear this similar story a lot with individuals who stop drinking and then have their friends say, "Oh, I miss my drinking buddy," or, I can't do the, and it's just like, why do you think the world revolves around you? Because it does not.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting hearing that, only because right around Thanksgiving, I just decided, for no particular reason except I'm 64 and I handle it differently now. I just don't want to drink anymore. Like, maybe there'll be a glass of wine at a nice dinner or something, but I'm just not going to recreationally drink anymore. And so if I go out with anyone I know and they want to buy me a drink and I go, yeah, just give me a Coke. And it becomes a thing where my personal choice is their thing to obsess about. And I don't, like, and when I say no reason, I just don't want to. And the level of why just baffles me, because I think they want a story. Like, people want
Yep.
oh yeah, I got drunk and fell in a manhole last week, and now I'm on probation, so I can't drink for 6 months. Like, you want that. People can't understand that things just are. Things just happen sometimes. People are just what they are. And let's move on to something important to talk about.
I
It's
love that.
um yeah, I realize I sound like so old now, imparting the wisdom of my years, but I am old. So
Hey, that is the beauty of being at a stage where you literally feel comfortable enough to say whatever you're thinking, which I absolutely love. People who know me know I believe in radical candor, so I'm going to say what I'm thinking, and that's just who I am. And most people love me for it, so I'm okay with that. Okay, so two things.
yeah.
One, is there anything that you really hoped we would cover that we haven't covered yet? And then second is it is a requirement of this podcast that you share your favorite motivational quote. So I want to make sure we get your favorite motivational quote as well.
Oh God, I have to think of because I've come up with ones that I like just in this process. Um, Actually, there's one that probably sounds off, and it came from a friend of mine years and years and years ago. Um, that if this is fun, we're having it, which can be applied in a negative way. It can be applied in a positive way. But I do, often feel like that this is fun and I am having it. I just never allowed myself to know that's what it was. I did not know how to define fun, and I'm still kind of shaky on it, but at least it's in within my purview now. So
Amazing.
I have many others. I'm looking over. I have very long ones from Kurt Vonnegut. and from Stanley Kubrick, but those are long, so I won't bore you with those. But everywhere I ever go, work here, at home, wherever, I print those out, and they are above on my bulletin board, so I see them every day when I work. So
I love that. I am super passionate about motivational quotes and have one of my favorites is Live Your Dash. Have you ever heard that poem? Have you ever read the Dash poem?
I don't think so. No.
So I'll include a link in the show notes, but pull it up. But basically, it's someone was talking at a funeral and said, okay, when you're looking at a tombstone, you see two dates. One is a date of joy, it's the date that the individual was born. And the other one is a date of sadness, it's the day that they passed away. But what really matters is the dash in between those. And it's the motivation to live every single one of those days. And so I have a sign that says Live Your Dash that hangs above the door as I'm going out. And it just reminds me every day, like today's another day of my dash.
Yeah.
Live it every single day. So I also surround myself with motivational quotes everywhere, including tattoos on my body.
Oh,
And so they just make me like, I have tattoos on my body. I have Be Brave, Be Badass, which is my personal hashtag. I have courage to do what's right, undaunted by repeated setbacks, perseverance in the storm, and I just fall down 7, get up 8. Just things that just remind me every day to just keep going.
yeah. It's well. I can actually go pull the Vonnegut one if you like to hear it. It's
Yes,
over there.
yes, please
Uh,
do. I would love for you to read it.
I don't have a tattoo yet, but I want to get one. And the phrase I was leaning toward, which maybe isn't a positive now I think about it. There was an outlaw back in the cowboy days named Ned Kelly. And when they were about to hang Ned Kelly, they asked if he had any last words. And his words were such as life, which I enjoyed. And the singer Warren Zevon, if you know Warren Zevon, who's my
I don't.
favorite all-time lawyers, guns and money, and werewolves in London. Like they're songs people have heard of his, but he was dying of cancer, and he went on David Letterman one last time because they were buddies, and Dave wanted to celebrate him. And his words of wisdom at the end of that were enjoy every sandwich. And that is like on my phone case now. And that's another one I highly recommend is enjoying. Oh, see, it's very long, so I don't need to read you the whole thing unless you want to hear the whole thing. But
Go for it.
all right. Actually, this is the quote I used to use to try to practice my voice, which has totally eluded me now. So I'm going to do some voice practice for you while I do this. Uh,
Love
and,
it.
and he said something, or he was talking about being 15, and one of his jobs just to make money was working on an archaeological dig. So I was talking to one of the archaeologists one day during our lunch break, and he asked those kinds of getting to know you questions you ask young people. Do you play sports? What's your favorite subject? And I told him, no, I don't play sports. I do theater. I'm in choir. I play the violin and piano. I used to take art classes. And he went, wow, that's amazing. And I said, oh no, but I'm not any good at any of them. And he said something then that I will never forget and which absolutely blew my mind because no one had ever said anything like it to me before. I don't think being good at things is the point of doing them. I think you've got all these wonderful experiences with different skills, and that all teaches you things and makes you an interesting person, no matter how well you do them. And that honestly changed my life because I went from a failure, someone who hadn't been talented enough at anything to excel, to someone who did things because I enjoyed them. I've been raised in such an achievement oriented environment, so inundated with the myth of talent, that I thought it was only worth doing things if you could win at them. So,
I
there we
love that. I
go.
am so glad you read the whole thing. That is amazing.
Yeah, that is Mr. Kurt Vonnegut. Everybody who hasn't read Kurt Vonnegut, you gotta read him. That he um, life-changing author, Kurt Vonnegut. So I
Well,
recommend
Cara,
it.
this has been so great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for tolerating me for this long. So I hope it was vaguely useful. That's my
It
other
was
point.
incredibly useful.
All right. Well, thank you. A pleasure to do it. And hopefully everyone does what they feel like they have to do. So go
Absolutely.
go forth and don't wait till you're 64 because that's old, because that's what I am. And it's very hard to get out of bed in the morning. So do your changes when you can still get out of bed in under 60 seconds. So
Love it. Thank you.
my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today with your coffee and conversation. We hope you've been encouraged and learned something from today's story. To learn more about today's guest, please check out our show notes for more details. Now it's time to remember to like this episode, subscribe, and turn on your notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. Recovery Advocate Network envisions a world where individuals with mental health challenges receive comprehensive and effective treatment without the worry of financial burdens to themselves or their families, all without the stigmas often present in society. We are proud that every individual working with RAN does so on a 100% volunteer basis. You can support the mission by making a financial donation via PayPal or Venmo, or email donate@recoveryadvocatenetwork.org if you would like to donate items for our next fundraising auction. Please visit our website at www.recoveryadvocatenetwork.org to learn more. Now, stay in the loop about upcoming events, future episodes, and more by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, TikTok, LinkedIn, and all major podcast platforms. As a reminder, the experiences and advice expressed in this episode are the host and guest's own personal stories and do not represent the opinions of any organization mentioned. RAN is passionate about opening the doors for all voices and experiences, not just those expressed in any particular podcast. If you want to share your experiences or expertise, we encourage you to be a future guest by emailing us at podcast@recoveryadvocatenetwork.org or submit a blog by emailing blog@recoveryadvocatenetwork.org. We also encourage you to comment on the episode so that we can continue to provide content that is most beneficial to the community. How do you do that? Visit our website at www.recoveryadvocatenetwork.org, and in the top right corner, click that comment button and comment. So listeners, what do you need to do? Pause what you're doing, subscribe, follow us. Please give us a like and a 5-star rating, write some meaningful comments, and most importantly, share these episodes with your friends. You never know whose heart you will touch, so please be a part of a reason someone has new hope today. If this episode was triggering to you, we encourage you to contact your support system, therapist, national and community support groups, the Global Crisis Text Line by texting 741-741, and/or if in the U.S., dialing 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you're in the U.S. and need additional resources such as shelter, support group resources, transportation, food, and/or a safe, confidential path out of physical or emotional domestic abuse, please call 211 or visit www.211info.org for assistance. Now, we know you are very busy, and we are grateful that you said yes to sharing time with us today. If you stuck to our 3 C's of engagement and listened to the full episode, then visit the podcast section of our website and leave the comment about the podcast, and you'll be entered to win an autographed copy of one of the books from one of our book club series, as well as a Coffee and Conversation coffee mug. So thanks again. Until next time, back to your coffee.